I thought just for old time's sake I ought to wear this for a minute or so this morning to talk about elections and to talk about the whole election scam and how scammed we are and have been forever about elections. So let me take this off. You know, in 2018 I gave some credence, not necessarily to Q, but at least to the idea that somebody cared about elections, and that if there was any part of Trump that was real, the narrative, the idea, the meme that there was going to be some cleanup of the elections would come about. Following that, of course, the Q folks said, well, we have to wait until we have all the proof, and that we couldn't do anything in 2018, so, nothing happened. Well, it's been corrupt forever. And one of the guys in, I think, Tucson has followed it and proved with exit polls that Bernie, among others, was scammed in 2016, and that the craziness of our elections, our presidential elections, goes back at least with a certainty to 2000. And George W. Bush had his thumb on the scales. There's indication, of course, clear back to 1960 and the Nixon-Kennedy election that there were thumbs on the scale there. And landslide Lyndon goes clear back to 1948 when one of his operatives stuffed several hundred ballots in a single precinct in order for him to become a congressman at the outset. So what I want to do, and what my cover shows, is the Billionaire's presidential C-lection, not E-lection. And to take into account that our vote really doesn't count. Not only does it not count, it isn't counted, okay? It may well not be counted. And if you have guys like, bunches like Google that sent out notices, and or Facebook that reminded Democrats to vote this last time in 2018, but not Republicans, that it could have, there are some indications that it could have made a couple million votes difference, just that one. So we have public news sites, alleged news sites, ones that are not subject to antitrust, ones that are not subject to regulations, ones that are not subject to the balance rules of some of the public information corporations, which of course isn't followed at all either, that are meddling and playing in our elections. But that's just the outer edge of the touchstone. So this morning I got something where Dark Danny journalist talked about Kerry and Willard Mittens Romney matching up to save the Democrats and to become one of them president and the other one vice president, although I'd love to be in the room when they discuss who gets which. I suppose Kerry gets the lead because Kerry at least is a Democrat in name, even though Mittens is a, what do they call him? A Drano. Well, Republican in name only, and not really even that. He's a Republican Democrat in name only, so he's a Drano. So we have, what I would like to do is have you take a look at where we are right now. One of the things is that Real Clear Politics shows, and I will post this, that the betting odds now are clearly in favor of Bernie to become the candidate, although 538, which is Nate Silver, talks about the 20 or 30% chance that they're going to have a hung up convention and then we'll end up brokering it out. But the upshot of it is, number 2 on the list is no longer Biden or Warren or even Buttigieg, Judge, but Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg. And one of the things that led me into my little investigation today was that, of course, Michael Bloomberg is spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to buy his way into an election and not even show up at the first three or four or five contests, but wait till Super Tuesday when $100 million will make a difference in those big venues. And I think Texas and California are both in on it, maybe Massachusetts and a bunch of others. So unless you have your own corporate jet and you're capable of covering the country a couple times a day, or at least once a day, or making the loop to cover all of this, you're out of the running. So the little guy that lives in the rural town that someday could become president is not happening. But worse than that, let's go to Forbes magazine, and I made some comments the other day. Forbes magazine looked into who it is that's getting money, and I'm going to post how many billionaires have invested in each of the Democratic candidates. And of course, you have a billionaire as the Republican candidate, the sitting elected president. So it's all a billionaire game. One of the things that I was truly offended about in 16 was that little Marco Twinkle Toes, little Marco, Marco Polo, Romeo, Lumo, whatever his name is, had kissed the feet of Adelson and thereby become a legitimate candidate. And it offended me. And then of course, one finds out that Trump is the number 2 guy in on the Marco Rubio, Trump, Adelson cash in. And of course, Adelson is a huge contributor, and I'm going to show you today who they are and show you also the list of the folks that are in the Zionist billionaire organizations that makes up something in the neighborhood of third to half of the donors of these billionaires, maybe more than that are demanding their outcome from their candidates. And some of them have given money to 2, 3, 5, I think one of them 7 or 8 different candidates, basically betting on the entire horse race, betting on the entire field so that they have an entree into it. And while people typically make a huge deal out of Soros, I will show you that in, let me see if I can get to the, numbers of 2016, we've got guys that go all the way back. Here we are. So Adelson is the biggest guy on the list, and he gave money to Republicans, and this goes clear back to 18, and the numbers there are Adelson's number 1, not Soros, but Adelson gave $123 million to Republicans. Then you've got Bloomberg. Bloomberg's number 2, and Bloomberg gave $95 million, almost all to Democrats. $5,000 he gave to Republicans. I don't know who kissed his feet for that one. Then you've got Steyer, the guy that thinks he ought to be president and spend $100 million, who faked his way from being a petroleum banker, an investor, a petroleum and coal mining investor, to becoming Mr. Clean and Mr. Climate change, a guy who meddled in Arizona and tried to change the way Arizona Public Service, the utilities company, treats people, which probably was a good thing, but the guy is a puke. He is a puke. And he did $73 million. Then there's Uline, Richard and Elizabeth, it's Uline, I guess it is, or at least that's their company. They only gave $39 million. And then there's Sussman that gave 27, and Simons, and Soros is number 7 on the list. Oh my, he's way down there. Of course, he's given a couple $1 billion worldwide to manipulate Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, smart growth, which is never smart. If something says smart on it, you can count on the fact that the only thing smart about it is that they are trying to outsmart you. That's it. So if it's smart growth or a smart car or smart toilet paper, take a second look at it, because there is something wrong about it and somebody is trying to play a game with you. Then you've got Griffin and Schwartzman and Iconer, I think that's how you say it. Bezos only spent $10 million. He was a real cheapie this last time, and he is number 12. You've got Charles Schwab, the investor guy, who only gave $8 million. And if you look at this broken down by investor group, and I will give you also the input on the different investor groups, you'll find that the banking, investor, and real estate folk make up a huge impact on this. The pharmaceuticals ones are huge, and of course there are particular promotion groups that affiliate with these folks to try to get their ends, and I'm going to show you a whole list of a bunch of different contributors that were pointed out in 2016 by Forward magazine, the Jewish magazine from Israel, and who they perceived as the largest Zionist billionaire investors that were wading in the 2016 activities and had it waded in on the 2012 activities. I'll also show you how many billions of dollars are going into this election and how upwards of $2 billion was spent, I think, in 2016 just for the presidential election, and it goes on from there. And I'll give you the whole list of the top 100 that can be found on opensecrets.org, and if you take a look at opensecrets.org, it's pretty hands-off, and they don't really draw all the lines that you need to look at to see why people are giving money. And the question then is, when Trump and the rest of these guys talk about how they gave, for instance, tax benefits to all of us little folks, take a look at who was wading in on both sides of the election in 2016 to try to get their end, and then ask yourself who it was that benefited from the tax breaks and how much they paid to get those tax breaks. And they all got paid 10, 20, 30 times more than they contributed by simply getting somebody to give them tax breaks. And you say, well, maybe not personally. Well, what you have to recognize is that if they control or own a corporation, and the corporation basically goes to a zero tax basis, such as Bezos and Amazon, and they get tax breaks for moving into places like New York and elsewhere, which they ultimately didn't go, and they are not paying any taxes while they accumulate billions of dollars worth of assets, that they are in fact getting tax benefits. Let's not hide behind this. So I have a couple of things that I want to share with you about the quotes that we might have. And Mark Twain effectively said, you know, if in fact voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. Will Rogers shared some as well, and so did Smedley Butler. And I'm going to put those quotes on here, and I invite you, if you just happen to be listening, to take a look at those quotes, because they will tell you basically everything you know. If Smedley Butler told us that war is a racket in 1937 or 38, and his book then, from the most decorated person that had to that time served in the military, the most long-serving and most decorated active person, a Marine who served all over the world, says war is a racket, and I was used and manipulated to provide benefits for the bankers and for the investors and for the oligarchs and the oiligarchs, then why is it that we knew that in 1938 and nobody has ever done anything about it since? Nobody has done anything about it since. I have some thoughts and ideas about Eisenhower and his military-industrial complex quote, and perhaps about the alleged quote, and it is just alleged because I've researched it, on whether or not Kennedy was trying to get wanted to blow the CIA into 1,000 pieces and strew it to the wind. It is questionable about whether that's the case. So when you take a look at all of these billionaire investors looking at various presidential candidates, you've got guys like little P.D. Buttigieg that have 40 billionaire investors behind them. Kamala Harris had even more than that, even though she didn't make it. But these people are willing to spend money on various kinds of candidates and toss it at them to see whether or not something comes of it. And virtually all of them, except Bernie, and I'm not endorsing Bernie because of it, have multiple benefactors, billionaire benefactors, many of them ADL beneficiaries or beneficents, is that the right word? As well as seeking both the military-industrial benefits, the tax benefits, the real estate benefits, and the pharmaceutical benefits, among others, to benefit themselves, and none of that is for our benefit. You have to know that none of it's for our benefit. So, as Smedley Butler said, until you take profit out of war, you will always have war being used for profit. And we have known that since 1815, when Nathan Rothschild manipulated the London Stock Exchange to make hundreds of millions of dollars and to leverage himself into control of the crown, right? Or to have a controlling interest in the British crown as early as then. And before then, the War of 1812 and the financing of both sides, and Alexander Hamilton, who I know was an operative for the Rothschilds to help get the first Continental Bank, the first bank of the United States, lined up for us. And the arguments he made were the same BS arguments that Warburg made as part of the Warbucks deal. So my cover page shows you the Warburg family, Warbucks family. The daddy Warbucks, not necessarily the person that Little Orphan Annie's character is designed after, but Warbucks is effectively it. And what we have, folks, are wars and bucks. And you ain't in either of them. Wars for money and bucks for money, and all kinds of billionaires that looking to manipulate the United States for their own ends, and none of it's for our benefit. And it has never been clearer than it is now, where both sides of Congress, not one, this is not red and blue, it's not pink or purple or anything else, both sides are totally sold out. Tell me where the Republicans ever look after our interests. Tell me, and are ever looking after anybody less than a billionaire. Tell me where the Democrats look after the middle class, the lower middle class, the working class, the blue-collar folks, or even the minorities that are legitimate citizens of this country. They have all sold everything. And I am absolutely amazed that anybody votes on any of it. I mean, why is it that black Americans will vote for instance, will vote for, or Hispanic Americans, or any of the less advantaged, more challenged economically citizens will vote for Democrats who will infiltrate millions of illegals here, totally destroying the bottom end of the working market, totally making it that people cannot make a living wage at the working level. That both parties have sent 6 million jobs out of this country since Bill Clinton, and 7 times that many jobs in the periphery of those lost jobs, and they were all better jobs than anything that has come in since. So who is it that's looking after us? It's not Trump that just signed the USMCA, that is worse than, and I will provide you in my notes just below here, a linkage to a channel that's going to give you chapter and verse about how the USMCA is worse than NAFTA. How is that possible? How could he do a worse job than Clinton did, and how can he shamelessly look us in the eye and say, not only did I do better than Clinton, or not only did I replace NAFTA, and NAFTA was a piece of crap, but I fixed it. Well, he didn't fix it, folks. He didn't fix it at all, any more than, and part of what is pointed out is that by signing the USMCA, we have basically done like the European Union, and we are going to more openly allow migrants to come in here and out of here on a work-related basis. So people at the bottom end of this market forget the fact that automation will make your jobs worse. People at the bottom end of this market are going to find $11 is a hard glass ceiling for working people. And with inflation at 10% a year, which is the real inflation, they will very quickly not be able to pay for anything. So they need Bernie's health insurance benefits and school benefits, because they won't have it, and they will have to beg for it from the government, which is not the same as the middle class that used to buy its own by making its own income and spending its own income. We are now being taxed and deprived and destroyed, and having our incomes frittered away and sent overseas and south of the border, so that none of us can make a decent living, and the billionaires are deciding. So I'm going to put a whole bunch in this video, and not much of what you're going to see from me, or see of me, which is a good thing, right? But take a look at these various graphs and these pictures, and make a note that the big spenders are not us, and that there are billions of dollars going into this to decide our C-elections for us, because, as Twain said, it doesn't, if it mattered, we wouldn't get to do it. Well, we get to do it, but tell you what, it doesn't matter. All right, thanks so much for watching. Now listen, I am currently about 3/4 of the way into having enough money to put the website, blog site, the Seething Frog Guy up and make it so that we can blog it out. We should be set to do that shortly. If there are any of you who would like to contribute, you can do so at, I think, Dump the Fed, paypal.me, Dump the Fed. I think it's // Dump the Fed. But anyway, you'll see it in the notes below here. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for you to work with us to provide a blog site that we can all interact on. I also have nearly 200 names now of people who are getting my ramblings, my miscellaneous ramblings, and some of you have gotten those over the last couple of days. I will, from time to time, as I have done today, get charged up and play in the field and try to figure out what's going on. And when I do, I will attempt to share it, or at least note it, or link it so that you can follow as well and provide your notes. Please be aware, and this is an important thing, I get more than 200 emails a week. And if you send me a YouTube link saying watch this, and it says nothing more than that, I'm probably not going to watch it. Why is that? Because if I did that, I would do 20 of those a day, and it would take me all of my waking time to do it. So what you need to do, if you really want me to look at stuff, whether it's a video in BitChute or BitBite or BitTube or whatever, or YouTube or anywhere else, or a documentary link or a narrative or a news magazine, is to say, here is something about such and such, you might be interested in it because, take a look at it. And besides that, if it is a particular comment or a 5-minute segment of it, then tell me, take a look at this video and look from minute number 39 to 43 on the following issue, and that's why I thought it was important. Don't think I am going to spend 2 hours watching a video, especially some of these wet lines, these live talk show things, streaming things, where the people mumble and thank folks and look at their posting notes for 2 hours and they put in 3 minutes of good stuff. What I've tried to do with you, for better or worse, is not to have stupid songs introducing myself, not to have promotional stuff introducing myself, not to have musical backgrounds, not to put 10 minutes of rock and roll at the end of the stuff, but just the facts, ma'am, right? This is whatever it is, Dragnet, 1950s TV, just the facts. That's all that I'm here for. And I know most of you don't have time to waste playing silly little network type games. I ask you to do the same for me, okay? And that is, if you have something you think I should look at, tell me what, tell me why, and tell me where, okay? Thanks so much for watching. If you like it, give a thumbs up. You know, I lose 100 subscribers every time I post something, so I'll be looking to see whether or not that happens again. Thanks so much.